Hello everyone, this is Mark, and I feel like an ABC News reporter today, but I assure you I'm not. I call this the modern age. Today I'm just going to be talking about the ABC, so I have this little backdrop here, and it's kind of in response to the One Nation report by Four Corners on Monday, and well, not really in response to that, but in response to what I saw on Sky News the following night, in which some of the pundits were very quick to use the cry of fake news regarding ABC. So they wanted to totally discredit this, and they're totally trying to discredit the ABC completely here. So, I mean, as if calls of liberal bias weren't enough. Now, you can have whatever opinion you want on the matter. You might think ABC has a liberal bias. The story based on Pauline Hanson and One Nation certainly only showed one viewpoint. They are investigative journalists, but I mean, they could have done a secondary story about how nice Pauline Hanson is and how unauthoritarian she is. But that's not really the point. I just wanted to give a reminder that Sky News is actually owned by News Corp and Rupert Murdoch, and that corporately owned media is much more susceptible to, and in fact necessarily gravitates towards, bias in reporting. This is because they have a profit margin. And not only just bias in reporting, but I think Rupert Murdoch Media is kind of infamous for really pushing conversations further and further to the right, and I think part of, installing this idea of liberal bias, and certainly the idea of fake news towards ABC, I mean, discrediting the ABC or discrediting a perceived left-wing news source, or alleged left-wing news source, it's really only going to help Rupert Murdoch's bottom line. So you have to kind of question these accusations. And in my opinion, publicly funded broadcasting is essential for maintaining a democracy, basically, as I think it will provide a different point of view and a broader political spectrum than corporate-owned media. And I, for one, wouldn't just want corporate-owned media who are forced to pander to their audience often being advertisers, and of course the ABC isn't perfect, and there is a big fear that their reliance on public funding will mean that they have to pander, but instead they have to pander to the government in the interests of power, in the interests of the government, to maintain their funding. Yet, it's accused by Murdoch Media of liberal bias and being fake news regardless of which party is in power. If they were pandering to the government, if it was anti-democratic in that way, with a conservative party in power, wouldn't they show a conservative bias? Yeah, I don't know. Well, at least from that perspective, the argument kind of falls apart. But from my point of view, this only increases the importance of stability for funding of the ABC. So right now, there's lots of threats and movements towards cutting the funding. A lot of the really conservative politicians and the power players and the people in Murdoch Media are talking about cut the funding to the ABC. It's left-wing, liberal bias, cut the funding. But I mean, I think cutting the funding of this is only going to stifle democratic discourse, and of course, that's how you're going to increase likelihood of bias towards government interests, because it has less funding, it wants more funding. You're promoting pandering when it's ostensibly meant to be non-biased. So even if you think it's a left-wing source, I think you can call it that. You can have all kinds of enmity and outrage towards it being it having a liberal bias, but don't call for the cutting of its funding, because it's essential for our democracy. That's my argument. And I mean, not only does it provide a diversity of viewpoints in a society in which 70% of all newspapers sold are owned by Rupert Murdoch, and an increasing percent of television. He bought Sky News last year. It also provides a lot of essentially Australian content, and I think we should all be proud of that. So that's my video. If you have any comments, post them down below. I'd love to hear it. If you hate ABC, if you think it has a liberal bias, if you don't think it has any bias, if you think it's objective, if you think Sky News pundits are a bunch of scumbags, what your opinion is on corporate media, corporate news, Rupert Murdoch, any of it, it's all good. I'd love to hear about it. Hit the subscribe button, because I'm going to be making videos every week. Some of them are going to be short like this, some of them are going to be long. I'm going to try and make some more this week, especially about One Nation. So, thank you for listening. That's my opinion.